Hello, everyone. Uta here with my artifact, my orchid with its bloom spike. I sort of like the effect of the shadow on the wall. I'm filming in the evening, so I have some lights over here. I have some work going on tomorrow with the installation of this cork flooring, which should give me good insulation right here in this room. The barn board wall is all done, and so the next thing is going to be some noise tomorrow, and I won't be able to do any posts during the day. I wanted to mention a new YouTube channel of a Canadian woman who works in construction. It's Peridot Eyes, or perhaps it's supposed to be pronounced Peridot, Peridot, Eyes, Eyes. And she is kind of going viral on a couple of other platforms because she has a reaction video to Dylan, the Dylan. And I have a reaction video too, which is one of my early ones. It's titled, "What is a Meadow?" responding to his clomping around in what he calls a meadow in high-heeled black sandals, when actually I'm going to tell him, not only are you not a woman like me and Peridot Eyes, you are not in a meadow, you are in a grassy patch. And you can go to that video of mine, "What is a Meadow?" if you want to find out the scientific proof that I had for why the Dylan was not in a meadow and why uh, my patch is becoming a meadow. Of course, for the butterflies and the bees. Um, so let's see. To go to Portia, Trans Widow Testimony, Part 2. One of the things that Portia did as she was going through the time after her husband announced to her that he wanted to leave off being a father and he wanted the two of them to live together, is as she calls it, with bunny ears, as lesbians. She began going back to church and taking her children to church. She'd been raised in Catholicism, and she decided she needed that spirituality of entering a sanctuary and having these moments of stillness and prayer. And I will say that I do the same thing with the Hebrew prayers that I've memorized. Um, and I want to say to those viewers that who there are viewers who are not religious, who come off sometimes as anti-religious. And if you have grown up with a tradition of prayer and singing and worship, then when you're going through a time of stress, uh, this may be something that you find very helpful to, find your sacred and spiritual mind body connection. So I would just ask everyone to avoid being critical of anyone who expresses that they found solace in the prayers. Now, I didn't go to prayers which I had grown up with because I grew up Lutheran, but I had spent great effort and time memorizing the Jewish prayers because my ex, Nettie, decided basically to abandon being religious, and he, in a way, turned my children against the Judaism that they were born into. And I regard that as an affront, just an affront, especially to me as a person who converted and went through a year of study, went to the bathhouse, the mikveh, and immersed, and had engaged, and I sort of still engage in, um, you know, reading of the scripture or finding some connection to antiquity. And so I have a great deal of respect for Portia for kind of renewing her faith and getting more serious about it. It was helpful to her. And she started actually questioning her other previous beliefs about whether or not someone can change sex, uh, whether or not, you know, we have to go along with this. She really had to face this whole concept not as an observer of some other people with the ideation of a persona in the opposite sex, but she had to deal with the ramifications of how it was affecting her family. And her two older ones, who were boys, were quite upset. You know, they had no idea in their earliest childhood that their family wouldn't be together, that their father would say, "Don't call me dad," all those kind of things. Now, let's see. He had had a bad relationship with his father. That's also a commonality. I had a recent comment about why are we rehashing this painful past? And number one, it's because of what's happening now with children. And children are being told in school that it's not just an ideation, you can't actually change your sex. And children are becoming very, very mixed up about biology, the truth, who to trust, whom to trust. They're being told not to trust their parents. So this is some rethinking that we have to get back to. That's one reason I am doing this, not monetized. I do not expect to make any money from my book, In the Curated Woods, True Tales from a Grass Widow. I had to pay to have it published because the publishers are really not going to tell our story, and neither is the press. I mean, that New York Post article featuring me before I published my book was the unusual. That was very, very unusual. People aren't writing articles about us. And we need to find the commonalities. I'm seeing commonalities in the trans widow stories where this guy does not have a good relationship with his father and something went wrong. And maybe the father has some kind of personality problem. These are all things that the field of psychology should have been looking into and doing quality research on. They should have been asking us things. They, as we know from the Juliet story, she went to the doctor with her husband after he made his announcement, and the doctor basically sees through her. He doesn't address her at all. He doesn't say, "You must be upset. You must be worrying about your child." So these stories, these details are actually quite important. That is what I posit. Now, okay. This is another commonality, and it is going to be coming out in one of my next episodes on Juliet. At one point, Portia is arguing with her husband and saying, "You have to come outside. You have to leave this computer pornography that you're watching, and you have to come outside with me and the children." And he got so angry with her that he choked her, and she had to call the police. And a similar thing happened with Juliet. We have to get the details, figure out the commonalities in the experiences of the trans widows. Now, the last bit is about a very tragic event in Todd, Portia's husband's family, where Todd's, I believe, older sister had a very serious terminal cancer. I It might have been ovarian cancer or pancreatic cancer, something that sometimes these particular ones take people fast, often. So he'd already moved out to somewhere on the West Coast with his new lover, who is a man like him. And as far as Portia knows, they are both intact below the waist. She doesn't know whether they've gotten boob jobs, but he does come back to see his sister when he has learned that it is likely that she's not long for this world. She's in the hospital. She's very ill. The family is there. I can't remember if there were other siblings, but his parents were there. And he waltzes in a mini skirt and fishnet stockings to see his sister for the last time. Now, what does that say? These are the true tales that trans widows bear witness to. It's very important for us to tell these stories. I'm not saying that I think about this all day long. I'm thinking about my plants. I'm thinking about my work outside. I have a full life. And even today, I had an amazing conversation with a mother of a daughter who thinks that she used to think that she was actually supposed to be a boy. She unfortunately, as an adult, did what's euphemistically called top surgery. And now she seems to be slowly detransitioning and regrets this surgery and is still not speaking to her parents, but she's recently announced to some of the siblings that she's so-called non-binary. And this is a path that detransitioners sometimes take. All of these paths and all of these details must be recorded, must be explored, must be documented, because every single case adds up to patterns. And the patterns are what we need to put out into the public view. We need to protect children. We need to protect adults. We need to protect the children of. We need to protect the spouses of. May we all stay well in mind and body always.